Good morning, good morning, good morning. Shalom to everybody. This is your boy Trevor, and welcome to another episode of Pause and Reflect, your 2 to 3 day morning motivation. Oh man, this morning we do have an interesting topic for you. And the topic of today's show is breaking free from survival mode. Oh man, that's how, listen, we could just end right there because a lot of us are in survival mode. Hell, you could break it down to even how it is economically. A lot of us are one check away from, basically the poorhouse. We're just in survival mode. You ask some people how they're doing, what do they say? I'm just surviving. I'm barely making it. We're in survival mode. But today, hopefully we could start the process to get out of that, to break out of that survival mode. Because listen, morning to you, Jackie. Let me explain this to you. Survival mode will teach you how to hustle, but it'll never teach you how to heal. And some of you brothers have been surviving so long that you forgot what it feels like to live. And that's just what I said earlier. Um, you ask a brother how he's doing. Hey man, I'm just surviving. I'm just surviving. Well, what was the lyric in Good Time? Scratching and surviving. Everything is like we've we've made we've made survival seem like such a good thing for so long that it's become a part of us now. It's just like, oh my God, just as long as I'm surviving, just as long as I'm surviving. No, 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 no. Sometimes, man, we gotta live. Just constantly being in this survival mode, it will rob you. It will rob you of yourself. But before we get into it, as customary, let's go into the word. Let's go to the book of John. We're going to go to the 10th chapter and we're going to go to the 10th verse. Very, very, very familiar verse of scripture. The thief come. The thief cometh not but to steal, kill, and destroy. And I am come that they may have life and have life more abundantly. What is that? What is that? What's up, Hassan? What is that? Steal, kill, and destroy. That's you living in survival mode. You always you're always waiting for the next shoe to drop. You ever see people? You ever see these survivalists? That's a good example. These survivalists, they board their houses up and they live always expecting something bad to happen instead of just actually living. Let me show you. Let's go over a couple things. When you could tell when a guy is in survival mode, guy or gal, it doesn't matter, because a lot of them are always running on empty. You're always empty. You're always tired. You're always on the edge. You're always emotionally numb every time because you're in survival mode. You don't have any you don't have any peace in your life. You always in survival mode. You always just waiting to for the next shoe to drop, for something bad to happen. You're always just surviving. You're doing what you got to do, but you're not becoming who you were meant to be. You always, oh man, how many of us we know those guys? I'm just doing what I got to do. I'm doing what I got to do. I'm doing what I got to do to survive. See, it always comes back to that. Words have meaning. Sometimes when we say these words, we don't really understand the power behind them and the meaning behind them. Words have meaning. When you're always talking about, I'm just doing what I got to do to survive. I'm doing what I got to do to survive. Doing what I got to do to survive. Let me ask you a question, and let me give you a little homework assignment here. Instead of saying I'm doing what I got to do to survive, say I'm doing what I got to do to live. And if more into the queen of the straight talk society, and if what your actions are isn't lining up to that, then we got some work to do. Just ask yourself, are you alive Are you living, or are you just functioning? I always talk about the functioning alcoholic. Functioning alcoholic could do everything, especially in a relationship. A functioning alcoholic can be a husband, could be a dad, could pay bills, could do everything because they're just functioning. They've learned to finesse the system so much just to keep on going, just to keep on going. It's just, you know what it is? It's just like it's like if you have a car and you know that car needs some major work to it. You hear a little knocking in the engine, and instead of going to get it fixed, what do? You just put some more oil in the engine. That's survival mode. That's what survival mode looks like. You're literally just functioning. You'll never get to a point where you're living. All you're doing is just functioning. And we gotta stop doing that, man, because again, like I say, as men, we leave out of here real early, and then we always give the excuse why we stay stuck there. We grew up in it. Again, the trauma of what we saw growing up, we feel like that should be our everyday. That should be our everyday life. I saw my dad do it, so that's how it should be done. Mom worked 3 or 4 jobs to make it, so that's how it should be done. Never living, always just trying to survive. Never living. And I'm telling you, man, we are a product of our environment. But sometimes that's not a good thing. And when you know better, you do better. But growing up, the old heads would always, yes, Hassan, I did see your email. The old heads would always applaud you for surviving. Say, oh yeah, man, you're doing what you. But that's not a good thing. Just because you can do something doesn't mean that it's a good thing, because we're not looking at the we're not look God, I can't see Jackie's comment because this thing is in the way. I don't know what's going on with this. Move out of the way. Okay, hopefully it'll bump up. Um, yeah, we're growing up, they'd always applaud you like, yeah, little bro, you're doing what you gotta do to survive. You're doing what you gotta do to survive. Those drugs are gonna kill your community, but you're doing what you gotta do to survive. You know. But then what do? We just go blame the white man and be like, oh man, the white man put the drugs here. That's a whole other thing though. But you always do survivor shouldn't become a tradition. Absolutely. See, now it bumped up, so now I can see it. You always it is we applaud. It's like, oh man, God, dog, got to do it anyway. We applaud generational welfare and things like that. That's what we've learned to applaud in our society. Things were bad, so your mom had to take a little welfare, but you saw that she was able to finesse the system. So now you think, okay, let me jump on welfare now. And then you pass it down to your kids, and all y'all ever doing is surviving. Nobody ever taught you, like, hey, maybe try to learn a skill, try to learn a trade, try to learn how to do something. Let's apply some things. Let's try to learn how to make some investments so that we don't have to live less than what we were made to live. And listen, man, we fear this peace because we don't know what it feels like. How many of you listen? I'm gonna ask you a question, because I always do. I like to ask questions in this pause and reflect. How many of you actually know what real peace feels like? Bible says that the peace of God surpasses all understanding. That is some, we always talk about, man, that's peace. You know what type of peace you have to be in for it to surpass all understanding? You know what you have to be in, what type of state of mind you have to be in for that to have to happen. That peace doesn't come out of survival. It doesn't come out of survival. I did an interview with a young lady one time, and I asked her, I said, man, so many women were raised on survival versus being raised on love. And that's why their dating patterns are the way they are. Because if you were raised on love, you know what it's like to expect love. You know what it's like to expect peace. You know what it's like to expect a good home. I always talk about the things that I do with my daughter, that her husband or whomever is gonna be expected to do certain things because I set the example. But we have these young men and we have these young ladies that's been raised on survival. All they've been doing is raised on survival, that the minute something doesn't seem comfortable for them, or the minute their spouse or the minute their partner does one little thing that they don't like, it makes it very uncomfortable. It makes it very, very uncomfortable for them, and they don't know how to react because they're in survival mode. That's why I told you, I think it was last week or a week before, I talk about some brothers. They'll be in relationships and they already got their next relationship lined up because they're in survival mode. They never know what it's like to just have the real peace, have the real peace of a relationship. They don't know it. They don't know what peace is like because we're too busy stuck in survival mode. We always We're always just waiting for the next shoe to drop. We're always, oh, this is gonna happen. Oh, something bad is gonna happen. Always doom and gloom. Oh my God, listen. I had to get away from the doom and gloom prophets. It's always doom and gloom. Everything is doom and gloom. Nothing could ever go right. Always doom and gloom. You got to get rid of those type of people. When we talk about fixing your circle and you know, cleaning out your circle, because you are, birds of a feather do flock together. You know, I could tell who you are based on the friends that you keep and the things that you allow. And if you're always doom and gloom and this and that, you can't be in my circle. You just can't be, because you know, at some point you got to get out. At some point you just want to live. At some point you just want to be happy. At least one time. You at least want to experience some type of happiness and not always feel like you have to fight every time. You're always in fighting mode. Every time you always got to fight for this. You always got to fight for that, because you're just surviving, man. You're not living. You're not living. And that's the problem with a lot of us brothers, man. That's why we go into the grave so early, because we survive so much that we just give up. We just get tired and we're just like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. You know, survival was necessary at a point. You know, so we can't ever say, you know, we talk about the ancestors and things like that. We can't ever say, oh, you know, their survival looked different. But don't you think they already paved the path? They paved the way that we shouldn't be, we still shouldn't be dealing with some of the issues that we're dealing with. Sometimes it's time to break free from some of these things, man. You can't be, you know, what's when they say the apple don't fall far from the tree. You can't be defined by, you can't be defined by your past. You can't be defined by who people say you are. So you know what? So what your dad was this. So what your mom was this. That doesn't define who you were. You can't pick who had you. And you love them. They're your parents. They gave you life. They brought you into this world. But you can't. Their identity can't be yours. You can't let them define who you are. You cannot. We got to stop holding. We talk about this all the time, holding on to these things from the past. You got to stop holding on. A lot of black people don't understand the peace that passes all understanding. They quote it, but they don't understand it. Yeah, you're right. You're right, Jackie. I'm telling you, I don't think a lot of people know what real peace actually feels like. Real peace, like when you're in a peaceful stage and you're just like, man, I can't change things anyway. So I am peaceful and I am content with what's going on, and I am going to live. There's an old country song. I think it was Tim McGraw. He found out that he had cancer, And and then he just started doing. And so then they asked him what he was going to do. Morning to you, Keela. And the first thing he did, he was like, I went skydiving, Rocky Mountain climbing. He started doing everything that he was so afraid to do. And the hook of the song said, one day I hope you get the chance to live like you were dying. Because when you know that you're dying, you you take off all the inhibitions, you take off all the shackles, and now you actually go out and you live. You live. You live. Man, listen, it's in the book of Ezekiel. Oh, God, I don't remember the exact verse, but I will get it for you for Wednesday. But the prophet was saying how, when I came by, I saw you polluted. You were polluted in your own blood. You were laying there dying. And the prophet said, and then I came by and commanded you to live. Oh, my God, some of y'all just got to live. That's why you're 40 years old looking like you're 60. Oh my goodness, this is you're 30 years old. You got bags under your eyes. I told somebody the other day how old I was. No, I told them to guess how old I was. And they were like 27. I was like, oh my goodness, that's great. Because I live. Yes, I worry about some things, but I live. You got to learn to live. My dad I'm 45. My dad is 66 years old. My dad looked like he's in his 40s because my dad doesn't worry about anything. My dad just had a health scare last year, and he just looked at me. He's like, hey, if it's going to be, it's going to be. But I'm not going to stop living. We got to get out of that survival mode. God, one thing about Black people, man, we know how to trauma bond. We know how to trauma bond, and we know we know how to wallow in our trauma. We know how to blame. We know how to it's always somebody else. It's always somebody else. I mentioned about the drugs earlier. Just had this conversation with my wife the other day. Yes, the drugs, we know how the drugs got into our community, but the same way we banded together to sell them, you could have banded together to get them out of your community. The same way you banded together to pimp that woman is the same way you could have banded together to come up with some programs to get her off the street. You see how that works? You see how that works? It works both ways. Survival. He's always, I gotta survive. It's not survivors because you just want the quick come up. You want the quick come up. You just, man, we don't want to work for anything, bro. Like, oh my God, it's so frustrating. We don't want to work for anything. We just like, oh, if it don't kill me, it's just gonna make me better. No, it's just killing you softly. We were built for more than just making it through the week. Today's Monday, so most of us we start our work week today, and we're just like, oh, and for some of us we got Friday off, just like, oh, if I could just get through the week. If I could just get through the week. But I always like to look further than that. I don't live in a life that I'm not expecting long life. Like, I'm not expecting to not be there. I'm expecting to be here more than just the week. My mindset doesn't limit me from just week to week. I'm talking about future. I'm thinking about, hey, what are we going to do here now? Like you always say, you never know when your numbers call, but we are not going to help speed up the process. And when you live in survival mode and you don't live, that is exactly what you're doing. You're speeding up the process. Listen, I'm almost done, but I want to give you a couple of keys here. We got to start resting on our purpose, man. We got to rest with purpose. I did a whole show a couple of weeks ago on rest. Just rest. Sometimes it's okay to just to lay there and just refocus. Reconnect with your vision. Like literally yesterday, all I did, I had my mind to do some things yesterday, but when it came time to it, I was like, you know what? Let me just lay here and relax and just and shuffle up the game plan. It's okay to always reshuffle your deck of cards. You know, it's okay to let your heart hope again. Start believing again. You know, sometimes you know how you were when you were a kid, where you just believed like crazy belief. That hey, sort of like faith. You just believe. It's okay to just believe again. Stop being so cynical. Stop always thinking that everything's going to end up bad. Just believe. Start believing again. You know, start slow, just one habit at a time, one healthy habit, one conversation, one goal. You speak about healthy habit. This week I'm starting my fast, you know, just to rid myself of you know, just get all the bad stuff out. You know, I've fasted from social media. I've done, you know, sometimes it is okay to just be like, you know what? I'm not gonna do this. Let me turn this away. You see clear sometimes. Listen, I know a lot of people don't do it because Black people, we love to eat. We love to go out and we love to always, you know, we got to try this restaurant. We got to try this restaurant. But it is okay sometimes to turn your plate down. Turn your plate down. You know, the Bible says that these things only come through fasting and prayer. Some things you aren't going to get until you start turning your plate down. Oh my goodness. Some of us, we could see, you know, our bodies feel like crap, and we know, hey, don't drink that coffee in the morning. Don't drink 4 of those sodas in the day. Some of you just know, you know what some of your issues are, but you just don't want to do anything to fix it. You just survive because it almost comes off like some of us don't care whether we're here or not. And those are the people definitely I don't want to be around. I don't want to be around anybody that doesn't care about being here. That's crazy. And that's in any facet of life. You don't want to be here, don't be around me. But you say I'm surviving. Yeah, but you say I'm surviving to be what? Yeah, I don't know, Jackie. I don't know. Some of us, we gotta just live, man. We gotta live. Healing doesn't always look like a breakthrough, but sometimes it looks like you're breathing again. Oh my goodness. I talked about it a couple of days ago about being paralyzed in bed and you feel like a witch is riding your back. That's what the old folks used to say. And it's just that struggle. But sometimes when you get out of that survival mode, you just take a big inhale and exhale. Just you ever come out of a battle and you get the victory over a situation and you could just exhale. That's what it's like when you come out of survival mode. You could breathe again. You could breathe again. I'm gonna close with this, as I'm coming up on my time. But for most of us, you know, we made it through the storm, you know, and now that the storm is over, you don't have to fight everything. You don't have to brace for every moment. It's time to stop surviving and start living. Just live. Live. I'll get that scripture. I'll definitely get that scripture and have it for have it for Wednesday with the prophet Ezekiel. I think it was in chapter 6, verse 66, somewhere around there. But scriptures just say live. Live. Just live. And with all that being said, hey, everybody enjoy your Monday. I'll see you guys on Wednesday. Shout out to Lord allow. There you go. I tried to beat it, but it got me. It's all good. I will see you guys on Wednesday, man. Enjoy your Monday. You know, hey, we got a 4-day work week for the most of us. So while we're saying that, Friday show is going to be later because I'll be home. So I'll do Friday show about 8:30. You know, Friday is what they call Good Friday. hopefully I could stay on topic and not go off on a tangent about that. But I just leave you with this. Bible says that Jesus should stay in the earth 3 days and 3 nights. You do the math yourself. You can't go in the ground on Friday, Saturday, and come out early Sunday morning, and that be 3 days. But maybe one day I'll get into that on a Thursday. But nevertheless, man, hopefully everybody enjoys their work week. We'll see you back Wednesday. Peace.